In the middle of San Francisco Bay stands a fortress the world knows by one name, Alcatraz. For decades, it was called inescapable, a prison built for gangsters, killers, and men too dangerous for anywhere else. But what if that's only part of the story? What if Alcatraz wasn't designed just to keep men locked inside, but to feed something far darker? Tonight we uncover the hidden geometry, the ritualistic blueprints, and the evil design of Alcatraz. The waves crash against jagged rock. Fog swallows the island whole, leaving only the faint outline of a fortress rising from the sea. Alcatraz, an icon of American history, a place of punishment, escape attempts, and legends. But hidden beneath the surface lies something stranger, something older, and far more disturbing than the stories of gangsters and guards. At first glance, Alcatraz is just a prison on the rock. But to understand why it was built here, and why it was built the way it was, we need to step back. The island was once known to native tribes who refused to set foot on it, calling it cursed, a place of bad spirits. When the US military took it over in the 19th century, they used it as a fortress, then a military prison. But when the Department of Justice decided to transform it into the most secure penitentiary in America, something shifted. The official story is about control, the strong currents of the bay, the freezing water, the isolation. Everything about Alcatraz, we're told, was meant to keep men in. And yet, when you begin to trace the lines of the blueprints, when you study the placement of the cell blocks, the corridors, the sight lines, patterns emerge. Strange, geometric alignments that feel too deliberate to be coincidence. Angles that don't just control prisoners, but seem to funnel energy, sound, even emotion into particular points. It was sold to the public as a fortress of law and order. But step inside the cell blocks at night, and you'll feel it. The heaviness, the suffocating geometry, the sense that the place itself is watching. Guards spoke of it, prisoners whispered about it, but no one dared question it openly. Fast forward to the present day. Alcatraz stands abandoned, preserved as a tourist site. Visitors wander the halls with headsets, listening to stories of Al Capone and the Birdman. They marvel at the cells, the cafeteria, the view of the city just out of reach. But after the ferries leave, when the fog drifts in and silence returns, the island changes. It was on one of those nights that a lone figure crossed the bay. No records of his arrival exist. Some say he was a researcher. Others claim he was chasing legends. What we know is this: he stepped onto Alcatraz just after midnight, armed only with a flashlight, a notebook, and a curiosity that would lead him into the heart of the island's darkest secret. The corridors were silent. The air was thick with salt and mold. His footsteps echoed too loudly, bouncing in ways that didn't make sense. He moved deeper, past rows of rusting bars, until he found himself in the warden's office. Papers lay scattered, maps curled and yellowing with age. Among them, a set of blueprints unlike any other. Drawings not just of cells and walls, but of shapes, symbols, spirals hidden in the layout. At the center, a chamber no guide had ever mentioned. He traced the lines with trembling fingers. The geometry pulled him in, compelling, almost alive. The prison wasn't random, it was intentional. Its very design a mechanism, a ritual carved into stone. The deeper he looked, the clearer it became. The cells aligned like teeth in a jaw, the corridors like channels, all leading downward into something buried beneath. At 1:30 a.m., he pushed through a rusted door at the end of a corridor. Behind it lay a staircase, spiraling down into the earth. He descended, each step colder, each breath heavier. The walls dripped with moisture. The air vibrated with a low hum, like distant machinery. The prison above was silent, but here, something pulsed. He reached a tunnel, long, narrow, its ceiling curved like the inside of a rib cage. His flashlight flickered. The sound grew louder, not mechanical now, but human. Whispers, layered and overlapping, as though dozens of voices spoke at once, just beyond hearing. He pressed forward, heart racing, and then he found it. The chamber, a vast circular space carved deep beneath the island. Its walls were lined with strange markings, not graffiti, but deliberate carvings. Spirals, intersecting lines, shapes that hurt to look at. In the center, a pit descended into darkness, its edges worn smooth by time. Around it, remnants of chains and shackles, as if men had once been bound here, not in cells, but as part of something else. The realization struck him like ice. Alcatraz wasn't designed just to hold prisoners. It was designed to harvest them, to take despair, suffering, rage, and concentrate it here, in this chamber, a machine of stone and geometry, feeding something unseen. At 2 a.m., the ground shook, the walls trembled, dust rained from above. His flashlight caught the carvings, and for a moment they seemed to move, twisting, aligning into something greater, a symbol too vast to comprehend. He stumbled back, his mind reeling. The tunnel behind him groaned, stones cracking. He turned and ran. The whispers grew louder, chasing him through the passageways, rising into screams that weren't quite human. He forced himself up the stairs, through corridors that twisted impossibly, as though the architecture itself was shifting to trap him. At 2:45 a.m., the storm above reached its peak. Rain hammered the windows, lightning tore the sky. He burst into the cafeteria, only to freeze. The echoes here were wrong. Each sound repeated itself, stretched into voices he didn't make. And in the lightning flashes, he saw them. The cells filled with featureless figures, pale, eyeless, watching. Not prisoners anymore, but imprints of despair, shadows burned into stone. He forced himself forward, through the gates, into the storm. The island howled around him, doors slamming, chains rattling, the lighthouse beam jerking wildly. He reached the shore, where a small boat waited, half rotted but afloat. As he pushed it into the water, lightning revealed the truth. From a distance, the prison was no longer just a building. It was a pattern. The towers, the walls, the blocks, all aligned into a symbol carved across the entire island, glowing faintly with a red light from below, pulsing like a heartbeat. At 3:15 a.m., he rode into the bay, the island shrinking behind him, but the weight of it clung to him still. When he unrolled the blueprint, the lines had shifted, rearranging themselves into new patterns, mocking him. Alcatraz had let him leave, but it hadn't released him. He was part of the design now. By morning, he was gone. The blueprint disappeared. His story survived only in whispers, of a man who entered Alcatraz at midnight and returned broken, raving about patterns in stone and voices in the walls. Today, tourists flock to Alcatraz. They take photos in the cells, laugh about the failed escapes, and marvel at the fog rolling in. But if you linger too long, you'll feel it. The corridors align too perfectly. The acoustics twist your footsteps into something else. The shadows stretch further than they should. Guides call it haunted, but haunting implies accident. Alcatraz was no accident. It was designed to hold more than men. It was designed to hold despair itself, to feed it, to grow it. And though the prison closed in 1963, the island remains. The geometry remains. The design endures. So the next time you stand on the deck of a ferry, watching the fog part to reveal that fortress of stone, ask yourself, was Alcatraz really built to keep men inside, or was it built to keep something else alive? Alcatraz may stand today as a tourist attraction, its cells empty, its halls silent, but the design remains, carved into stone, waiting in the fog. And if a building can hold despair long after its walls have crumbled, then maybe Alcatraz was never just a prison, maybe it was a ritual, one that never truly ended.